Well, good morning and welcome to day 3 of our special VoteVets Live, marking the 2020 Democratic National Convention, where every morning this week we're live at 9 a.m. Eastern on Facebook and Twitter with an incredible list of guests to recap what's happened and get you ready for what's coming next as this unprecedented virtual convention continues. Last night in primetime, we heard from a terrific lineup of Democratic Party leaders under a theme of Leadership Matters. And during the DNC's Veterans and Military Families Council meeting, we at VoteVets released a brand new video on that same topic titled A Real Commander-in-Chief that makes the case that Donald Trump isn't just disrespectful in his language. He has failed our men and women in uniform with his actions. So I hope you'll visit our Twitter and Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and check out that new video. Today, we're kicking off things with former Ambassador and Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, John Estrada, then turning to Kayla Williams, former Director of the Department of Veterans Affairs, Center for Women Veterans, and closing with an update from our friend Leo Cruz, the Veterans and Military Families Engagement Director for the Biden-Harris campaign. We'll be joined by Gold Star mother Karen Meredith, who will be familiar to many of you as VoteVets Military Families Liaison. So without further ado, let's bring in Ambassador Estrada, who is the former United States Ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago and a former United States Marine who served as the 15th Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. Mr. Ambassador, welcome to VoteVets Live. It's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. And I think we gotta unmute your audio and then we'll be rocking and rolling. Let's see. Mr. Ambassador, how are you?
Good morning. I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Oh, sir, we're really excited to hear your perspective this morning as someone who served at the highest levels of the Marine Corps, understanding the needs of our men and women in uniform. Has also been a diplomat, served as an ambassador. So let's start with some big picture policy questions, and then we'll drill down on your support for Vice President Biden and what you've thought of the convention thus far. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay. All right, let's do it. First, over the past few years, we have read in the news about some really bad circumstances within the U.S. State Department. We've watched the president and his top leadership all the way up to the secretary, especially under Secretary Pompeo, burn relationships with our allies and reward our adversaries. And part of the collateral damage of that effort has been pushing out career diplomats and professionals who have decades of not just country expertise, but I think people forget sometimes that relationships in those countries where we need them at the diplomatic level. What's your assessment overall on Donald Trump's handling of the U.S. State Department and his management of our relationships around the world?
My assessment of Donald Trump handling of the State Department, simple word, it has been abysmal. I have had the opportunity to work with those career diplomats, dedicated to America, don't serve any party, they serve America. And Donald Trump, what he has done to that department, he has basically destroyed that great institution by forcing out, silencing, and firing that institutional knowledge that we had within the State Department. It's a big loss for our country. And the morale within the State Department is very low. It is. What this has done in turn, it has strengthened Russia, President Putin, President Xi. How has that strengthened them? We have backed off the world stage. President Trump wants yes men and yes women, and he doesn't get that. He moved those career diplomats on. So Russia is now in a position in the world, and so is China, that they are more emboldened in what they're doing. Our allies around the world who had so much trust and confidence in us before do not have it anymore. This has forced them to start looking to cozy up, build relationship with other nations, to include Russia and China.
Absolutely. It's incredible to watch, and the president just keeps going. He wants to have a meeting now with Vladimir Putin before the November election, and we know how well those have gone in the past. Let's turn to the Pentagon now. We've talked to several retired senior leaders this week, Admiral Mike Smith, Generals Paul Eaton and Trish Rose, former Undersecretary of the Army Patrick Murphy, All great conversations. And we talked a lot about the damage that the president's done in politicizing our military senior ranks, firing service secretaries, putting generals and admirals into unthinkable positions. You served as the Marine Corps' top enlisted leader. So I think you know better than anyone that we've talked to what folks at every rank think, and what it means when they look at their senior leaders, the generals, service secretaries, and of course, the president as commander in chief. So from the abrupt resignation of Secretary Mattis, throwing Lieutenant Colonel Vindman out of the Army for telling the truth, what has the president's chaos meant to morale and readiness in our military?
The president chaos has meant obviously low morale. It has caused our troops, and I'm talking about all of them, Marines, Army, Navy, it has caused our troops to now start questioning probably the commands they get from their senior leaders. They question it. Is this going to stand, or will this president intervene and continue to politicize the military? So what this has done by troops having that concern, what am I doing here? Is it illegal, immoral? They start questioning those orders and commands, and basically it makes us less combat effective, because these troops are worrying about other things. So it makes us less combat effective. As politics in front of our troops, one of the first things that startled me right after he took office, we had never, ever experienced a president speaking politics in front of our troops. It's starting to show cracks in our military. Sadly, it is starting to show cracks because now we have some troops on active duty getting involved in politics. So it has weakened us in that sense, and that needs to stop.
Absolutely. And in order to stop it, we know at this point, we've had people who have tried to shape this president from within, people who have thought that they could steer the administration in the right direction. Most of them ending up humiliated, embarrassed, and just discarded by the president himself, which is why, I know we are, and you are as well, supporting Joe Biden's campaign for president. You served in the administration at the decision of President Obama and the vice president. You endorsed the Obama campaign in 2008. You actually spoke at the DNC that year. I want to start with why you're behind Joe Biden's campaign and what kind of a commander-in-chief you think he'll be.
I am behind Joe Biden's campaign. I could go ahead and say I've been behind Joe Biden since 2008 with President Obama. Empathy, caring. He is the only one right now that could unify a country. Our country is so divided. I have never seen this country so divided. I have never seen it this way. And I came as a 14-year-old immigrant. And what I see today is really, really startling. So Joe Biden, I see in him unifying our country. I see decisiveness, as I mentioned earlier, empathy, reaching across the aisles and working with different the Republicans, the independents, or whatever. That's what I see. Instead of dividing and spewing hate through either through religion or immigrant status or race or whatever. Joe Biden is none of that. He is the one that could bring us together. So that's why I support him fully in that aspect. The second part of your question, what was that?
Well, let me steer it a little bit different direction, because something, as you hit on, I think it's not just the tense feeling and how fractured things are right now, but people also don't feel that excitement or inspiration about where the country's going, the way that we did, and what we can recapture if we elect Joe Biden. Take us back to 2008. When you were at the DNC in person. It was not a virtual Zoom type event like we have to this year. What was it like to be there? And what was it like to get to know President Obama and the vice president?
It was electrifying. Here was then soon to be President Obama, Vice President Biden. Our country was excited. They were very excited. There was hope. Things are going to get better. There was no division. What we have right now. Right now, we are looking down a really dark alley We don't know where we're heading. Another 4 years, things could get extremely worse. So back to 2008, again, Obama and Biden brought a lot of hope. They brought people together. And that's not what we're having now. President Biden, again, would be a decisive leader. He would seriously listen to the advice of military commanders, those people that get paid, they're professionals, that understands the world scene. President Biden would listen to them. President Biden would make sure he take care of our troops prior, during, and after combat, which is important. Prior, obviously, get them the training and equipment they need, the support they need while they're in combat, and the support them and their family needs after they get back from combat. That's what I see in President Biden.
Absolutely. No, and I want to actually take from what you just brought up about caring for service members and their families all the way through joining the military to, veteran status. Last night, we heard from Dr. Jill Biden, who, when she was the second lady alongside First Lady Michelle Obama, made a huge push to improve the lives of service members, veterans, and their families through an initiative called Joining Forces. We've already heard that she wants to bring back Joining Forces 2.0 when she's First Lady and Joe Biden is in the White House. What did you think of her remarks last night and just her emphasis generally on military families? What would it mean to them to have her back in the White House?
Her remarks were inspiring. Here is someone that could speak to this issue from a personal standpoint. A mother that sent her son off to war, came back home, again, a veteran, and the stuff that you have to deal with, the separation of those kids from their father while he's off to war. She understands that issue. Military families across the country, across our great military, they know she understands the issue and she gets it, and she would be a great, great, great partner with that effort. So it was very inspiring to see that.
Absolutely. Now, before I ask you our final question, I have time for one more. That's a little off what I had prepared you for. This will be a tough period of time from where we are right now to when we inaugurate a new president. There could be a lot of chaos that the president's already alluded to in this transition. To the Marines who are entering basic training at Parris Island or who are deployed overseas in harm's way, what's your message to them and what they need to do to meet their responsibilities as we sort this mess out here in DC?
So I have always been ahead on this issue. Right after the election, one of my first speeches I had to go out and give was at the Marine Corps Ball out in California. And my message never mentioned the president, but I had watched all the rhetoric. I remind our service members and those that's coming in, you have taken a solemn oath to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. And it's up to you to remember that oath and stay apolitical, because you are the last vanguard of protecting our democracy. For those who want to be strongmen, they cannot be a strongman, an authoritarian leader, unless they have a military behind them. So it's important. That was my message to the troops. That's my message today. I will continue to say that. Remember that solemn oath that you took while you were joining this great military of ours. You're joining to give Americans the right to demonstrate peacefully. We hear the things that about the flag and all of that, but we all have served. We took that oath to give Americans the freedom to get out on the streets and protest peacefully. So that's what I remind the youngsters that's coming in. And I also remind them that their grandfathers and their fathers fought the Nazis, the folks that we see on the streets in America today proudly displaying the Nazi flags and stuff. Their grandparents and parents fought against that during World War II. So that's my message.
Very well said. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you for your service, and thanks for making your voice part of this campaign. We think it's really, really important, and we hopefully will have you back soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. We'll see you soon. All right, next, we're going to turn to Kayla Williams, who is the former director of the VA's Center for Women Veterans. Kayla is an Army veteran who has written 2 books about her experiences as a soldier and a caregiver to a combat wounded veteran. Professionally, she currently conducts research and analysis on military and veterans issues. And again, she formerly ran the VA's Office of Women Veterans. Kayla, it's great to see you, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Absolutely. Now, there's a lot to cover. You have so much expertise on a range of topics. So let's start with VA. Donald Trump loves, almost every time he campaigns, frequently when he tweets endorsements of congressional Republicans, he loves to say that he's been good to veterans. But that is certainly not the story that we've heard from folks inside the VA and from veterans that we work with. The highest levels of the department have been plagued with chaos and infighting amongst the president's own political appointees, people who he put in office, from the firing of Secretary Shulkin, who, it's important to remember, had an armed guard outside of his door for a period of time because he was freaked out about the president's White House, Koch brothers, people. We had the shadow advisors at Mar-a-Lago calling the shots with financial interests involved, and also just attacking VA employees who are on the front lines of this pandemic right now and dismissing their pleas for PPE. You've served inside the VA. Can you grade the Trump administration's record when it comes to the Department of Veterans Affairs?
Well, when Trump took over, the incoming VA senior leaders never talked about what was actually best for veterans. VA provides higher quality, more culturally competent care to veterans at lower cost, but their focus was on how to expand the number of veterans getting care in the community, care that may not even exist. When I called the DC VA Medical Center last year asking for a mental health appointment, they suggested I go to a nonprofit because all their providers were booked so far out. VA's suicide prevention efforts under Trump have been weak and unfocused. Progress on ending veteran homelessness has really stalled, and veterans in state veteran homes have been particularly hard hit by coronavirus. And because of Trump's war on the post office, life-saving medications mailed to veterans are arriving late. We don't even have time today to list all the ways in which this administration is failing veterans, despite steadily growing congressional appropriations.
Absolutely. I think part of it too, it's interesting. He talks about mission a lot, and with everything, Congress can pass a law.
Actually, he talks about choice. He brags about passing.
No, you're right. You're right.
Which Obama.
He likes to brag about a law that President Obama signed because he cannot remember one word. It's literally one word of the bill that he signed. But Congress can put the intent there, and this is part of the job of the president, is that he gets to appoint people who implement and who exercise kind of his political will on those decisions. And as you said, the intent there has been to dismantle the VA. It's not been to strengthen the VA as they go about that. It's been to weaken, to leave 50,000 vacant positions, 43,000 of those on the healthcare side. I'm just curious. On that point, you saw kind of a different, President Obama obviously trying to deliver the best care and strengthen, what is the importance of the political leadership and the people who the president sends to a department like VA?
I think that it's incredibly important. And one thing that folks don't seem to understand is the importance of values. So under Shinseki, VA put in place the I Care principles, and you had to wear a pin that listed, that said I Care. And just like the Army values, when I was in the military, leadership, your dog tag listing, what that stood for was an inspectable item if you were enlisted. And Shinseki brought that same sensibility to VA. It's persisted under McDonald. When I came in, you could not walk into a senior leader meeting without your I Care pin. People got awards for their dedication to living the values that infused the organization. And that completely disappeared under this administration. There was no focus on thinking about this as a mission to serve veterans that was driven and informed by core values about what's important to this nation's veterans, to that sacred premise to care for those who shall have borne the battle. It really became about political gamesmanship, about trying to score points, about harming those who are most vulnerable rather than working to protect them.
Absolutely. No, that's very, very well said. And it's interesting too, because not only did the Obama administration talk about values and ethics and things that are, basically foreign language to Donald Trump and his senior leaders, but they also matched it with action. Something that you did in your work. You ran the Office of Women Veterans, was bringing specific attention to the issues facing women veterans in the VA. It's incredibly important. We're talking about providing competent care that matches the veteran population of today for women, for LGBTQ veterans, and others, and not just a matter, it should be enough that it's a matter of doing right by people who risk their lives to serve this country. It's also a matter of readiness and recruiting and being able to bring in, young service members who want to serve and who feel welcome in the military and welcome in the veteran population after they're done serving. President Obama and Vice President Biden cared about that work. Could you talk about what those efforts were and what's the damage that Donald Trump has done to those and its impact for the veteran community and for our military?
Right. Under my leadership, we were making significant progress in ensuring that women veterans were getting more equitable care. And there were tremendous strides being made in serving LGBT veterans and more. Today, 1 in 4 women veterans experiences sexual harassment at VA facilities, typically, unfortunately, for men who are their fellow patients. And rather than focusing on solving that atrocious and pervasive problem, Trump's VA Secretary Wilkie verbally attacked and then investigated the military record of a prominent woman veteran who reported her assault at the DC VA. Women veterans are still barred from getting abortions or abortion counseling with no exceptions, not even for rape or life endangerment of the woman. That means if I had a life-threatening pregnancy, because I'm a woman veteran who uses VA for my healthcare, if I went into VA, not only could they not provide me with a life-saving therapeutic abortion, they couldn't even, my doctor would not even be allowed to counsel me that I needed one and where I could go to get that medically necessary care. Women veterans can be charged for co-payments for birth control at VA, which is not allowed if we use private insurance, is not the case at DOD, is not the case in any other American healthcare system today. In addition, over 75% of VA employees report that they have personally experienced racially charged actions at work. And Black veterans in focus groups that I've conducted reported believing that they didn't get equitable care within VA. Transgender veterans who receive healthcare at VA are not able to get medically necessary gender confirmation surgery. LGBT veterans are unable to get IVF due to policies that only help those in heteronormative marriages. And this administration is working to eliminate an Obama-era rule requiring that faith-based organizations find secular alternatives for veterans who don't want to be helped by that group because of their religious nature, which we all know is code for don't want to go somewhere that they're going to be actively discriminated against. So all of these examples, and there's so many more, show that minority veterans and VA employees are being harmed by discriminatory policies and unwelcoming environments. But rather than solving these problems, the Trump administration is doubling down on maintaining them.
It's amazing. And to what you said earlier about culture, hearing stories when I worked in the Senate from VA employees, healthcare providers being harassed by patients. There are so many spiral effects. Talking about retention of the best doctors and nurses who are already taking, a significant pay cut compared to what they could be doing in the private sector, most of them because they want to serve the veteran population. They believe in the mission. That culture of disrespect and discrimination, it cuts every direction. Families, service members, veterans, employees, we could go on, and I think you did a great job summarizing it, so I won't. But I want to turn that same discussion over to the Pentagon. You alluded to it. This president has gone after military personnel and their families time and again. I think that the trend line through these different attacks, tweeting the transgender ban is something that, as an LGBTQ veteran, I remember just seeing that, feeling that gut punch. Going after veterans who are immigrants who have been promised citizenship in exchange for their service, or as they earned it through their service, rather. Trying to roll back the progress on opening all military occupations to women. The trend line seemed to be that every time that the president felt like it was in his perceived domestic political interest to do something like that was when you pulled the trigger, sending troops, pulling them away from their families around the Thanksgiving holiday to go sit at the border for the caravan. Can you talk a little bit about, that scope of it, particularly what the damage has been to our national security and our readiness from those personnel attacks?
Right. I think that this is a huge threat to our military readiness, possibly for years to come. Under the Trump administration, for the first time ever, the number of military families who say they would encourage their kids to join the military has dropped below 50%. Women veterans like me are watching the Vanessa Guillen case and finding ourselves unable to urge young women to enlist. Young people demonstrating for Black Lives Matter are facing uniformed troops in the streets who should be defending their right to protest, but rather have been called out to clear them from a public square with tear gas for a presidential photo op. The generation of Americans currently of age to enlist is more diverse and more tolerant than any in our nation's history. And if we can continue down Trump's destructive path, they will never consider military service an attractive life choice. We need to recruit the best and the brightest, not discuss them with discriminatory policies.
Absolutely. And those attacks, in addition to policy, also come when it comes to the way that they want to spend our military and Pentagon budget. I mean, once again, despite record levels of defense spending over these last few years, Secretary of Defense Esper earlier this week was reportedly eyeing a massive cut to military health care. And again, it always feels like the investing in platforms or whatever comes before personnel. Like one story that jumps out to me from the Senate was Senator Gillibrand, when I worked for her, was trying to get money for a pilot program to provide military lawyers for intimate partner violence and child abuse cases, which a lot of times are handled by Installation Management Command, not treated as criminal activity. It's a huge problem. And it was a $5 million proposal for this
like a rounding error.
Exactly right. Yeah. And they're like, oh no, we can't. Where would that money come from? And then you look at $741 billion or whatever the top line number is. What do you think about that issue generally of the healthcare example, but more broadly?
I want to focus on the healthcare example and tell you what the push to eliminate positions and shift away from fully funding and investing in military healthcare has already meant for my family. It means we can't get the care that we need. It's probably driven by the same privatization push that we all know is harming VA. And what it meant is that when my combat wounded husband sought a mental health care appointment, DOD referred him to a provider who was dead. I am not joking. There were no providers in our area, in the community, who were willing to take new TRICARE patients, and DOD is no longer seeing retirees because they don't have the capacity where we live. These problems are going to get worse if we don't reverse course. They're going to harm service members, veterans, and military families.
Thank you for sharing from your personal. It's just this is kind of the theme that we keep trying to hit this week in the video that we released yesterday, is that it's not just the rhetoric. The rhetoric is disgusting. The attacks on Gold Star families are disgusting, but the rubber has met the road, and people are feeling this, in real painful terms. So on that note, we've talked a lot about the bad. There was a ton of bad with Donald Trump and his record as president. Let's talk for a moment about what we can do for both our active duty personnel and veterans when we have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in office, a real commander-in-chief and vice president. Talk about what that future looks like.
As the parent of a soldier who deployed, Joe Biden is deeply aware of how heavy a responsibility that title of commander-in-chief truly is. He will take it seriously, and having Jill Biden watching out for military families again will be a huge relief for me. One other thing, let's talk about what a great ally Kamala Harris can be for us. We've seen rates of military sexual assault climb again under a commander-in-chief who bragged on tape of grabbing women's pussies without permission. A commander-in-chief who previously tweeted about sexual assault in the military, quote, "What did these geniuses expect when they put men and women together," unquote. and a vice president who famously won't even be alone in a room with a woman other than his wife. What kind of message is that sending to the men and women who serve in our armed forces about what kind of behavior is acceptable? I, for one, am very excited to have a vice president who has a background prosecuting sex crimes and who made Brett Kavanaugh cry. Let's see what kind of message that sends to the troops.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit it right there, and it's something that applies in that instance, right, with the kind of values matching, whatever. Same thing, though. We're spending, nearly $1 billion in Europe every year through the military to reassure our NATO allies, while the president is spilling intelligence to the Russian foreign minister in the Oval Office. So it's not, it has to match. All right. So finally,
yeah, if I'd done that as a junior enlisted soldier, I'd be in jail.
Still. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the president's language matters, and I don't think people understand. It's funny. We did a TV interview around the West Point graduation. They're like, "Well, how do you know that he wants to come or whatever?" And you can hear in his language. He's like, "Well, I'd really like to give the speech." Okay, well, to the Joint Chiefs, or to the senior military Army leadership, a suggestion of what the president would like is the same thing as telling them, what to do. And we can't whitewash that is, the effect of his words, which he still doesn't seem to care about. Okay. Final question. I want to ask you, what's been your favorite portion of the DNC thus far? And then name one speaker who you're excited to hear from tonight or tomorrow.
Okay. You can't limit me that much. Because their speech, honestly, it made me cry to hear from a Gold Star father like that. Colin Powell's words were incredibly inspiring. It was a thrill for me that the Veterans and Military Families session was packed with powerful women leaders on the anniversary of women's suffrage. And of course, last night, Jill Biden's speech was fantastic. It made me really confident that the Bidens understand the challenges that dual income families face. The roll call last night, I thought, beautifully showcased the diversity and priorities of our nation all across the country and in the territories as well. It was absolutely inspiring and phenomenally way to showcase what we believe in as a party. Tonight's lineup features this absolutely incredible lineup of women leaders: Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, and Kamala Harris, all in one night, capped off by a speech from Barack Obama. It's going to give us the momentum and the enthusiasm that we need to push forward and win in November. I just want to remind everyone to vote early if you can. This is such an incredibly important election. Absolutely.
It was really awesome to see. And that's especially last night at the Veterans Military Families Council meeting. Also yesterday, Pam Keith, a VoteVets endorsed woman veteran, won her primary in Florida. She's going on to the general. We have some additional great candidates. Gina Ortiz-Jones in Texas is another VoteVets endorsee, LGBTQ Air Force veteran. It's going to be awesome. The women national security leaders who were elected in 2018 have led the House Democratic Caucus on national security, military, veterans policy, and it's awesome to watch. So, Kayla, thank you so much for everything that you've done for our country. Thanks for making time to join us. Stay safe. Please give our best to your family, and we'll hope to have you back soon.
Thanks for having me, and keep up the good fight.
Thanks, Kayla. All right, last but certainly not least, we're going to turn once again to Leo Cruz, the Veterans and Military Families Engagement Director for the Biden-Harris campaign, and Karen Meredith, Gold Star mother of Army First Lieutenant Kenneth Ballard, and Military Families Liaison for VoteVets. You'll probably remember her from our Memorial Day interview earlier this year. Good morning, Leo, Karen. It's great to see you both. I know I see Leo and Karen. There you are. How are you, Karen?
Good morning.
All right, let's get right into it. Karen, I want to start with you. You watched last night's convention coverage where we heard from former Second Lady, Dr. Jill Biden. She focused on helping service members, veterans, and their families during the Obama-Biden administration. What did you think of her remarks last night about Joe Biden? I mean, she really focused on Joe Biden's character, who he is, and how he would treat all Americans as if they were his own family that he's helped through so much. What did you think of her speech, and anything else that jumped out to you from last night's program?
What jumped out at me through the whole convention was service and how different that is from our current administration. Obviously, their son, Beau, served in the military, but Joe Biden has served in his whole career as a public servant. And Dr. Jill has served by teaching. So both of them understand what service means, that it wasn't what's in it for me. And that was through the whole show or the whole convention last night is what struck me. Because I just don't think that our current administration understands why people might serve in the military, and how both of them are so relatable. If, as Dr. Jill is, an author, a mother, a grandmother, a advocate for breast cancer, they both have lived lives like we have. And so they were both relatable. And I also liked seeing Mr. Khan, the Gold Star father, who's still speaking out and supporting our military by doing that too. So it was, as I was telling a friend of mine earlier, it was the first time I've smiled that long for in a long, long time that I remember. It was very inspiring. The whole convention was, and just to see all the people, all the diversity in our whole country, I loved the roll call.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny that Ambassador Estrada brought that up earlier about just the feeling that people can have when they feel positive about where the country can go is an incredibly powerful thing in politics, but also just in everyone's lives as we're going through this bizarre time and trying to get through this pandemic. Leo, let's hone in just a bit on Joining Forces, the program that Michelle Obama and Jill Biden championed for vets and military families. How is her passion for that work reflected in the vice president's platform and in Dr. Biden's plans as our next first lady?
Yeah, thanks, Will. And I think most of the other guests have also mentioned this. Last night was a great night to have that smile back on your face again. Definitely. And so, one thing that was highlighted is Vice President Joe Biden and Dr. Jill Biden were our parents of a service member who deployed to Iraq. So it's not just that they understand military members who sign up to serve our nation. It's their families do too. The Bidens understand the sleepless nights, wondering if your deployed loved one is safe, the difficulties children's experience while their parents is serving far away, and all of the added sacrifices and challenges big and small military families face because they choose selfless service. Our military families never fail to give their best to the United States, and the Bidens believe that we owe them the best in return. And so you mentioned the great program of Joining Forces that the Obama-Biden administration started, led by First Lady Michelle Obama and Dr. Biden, to make supporting our military families a signature issue and a personal priority. And there was great images of Dr. Biden engaging with the troops. Honestly, even greater ones that weren't shown last night with Joe Biden talking to folks and talking to military families. And even I saw that as part of the administration, whether it was a 4th of July picnic or barbecue here or there, going to Walter Reed. These people are not just paying lip service. They really do get it. And Joining Forces was a national initiative, for those that don't know, driving top-level focus on the issues that matter to military families, service members, and veterans, including employment, education, and wellness. And they supported hiring or training over more than 1.5 million veterans and military spouses, drove reform in all 50 states to reduce credentialing barriers to qualified military spouses seeking employment. And Dr. Biden, as an educator, supported DoD's military spouse employment partnership and education programs for children to make sure that those that are serving alongside their loved ones are getting the best benefits possible.
Absolutely. Karen, Leo talked a little bit about, you both have touched on just the issue of respect. Talk a little bit about, specifically for the experience of Gold Star families, why does leadership from the president matter to the community, and what does it mean to them?
I think that leadership for in our commander in chief, as Leo just said, Mr. Biden will understand the gravity of sending troops off to war, and it won't be some half-baked mission to guard the border or at Christmas time. And will understand when he has to sign the orders to send families or to separate families and to send people off to war. If hopefully that wouldn't happen in this administration. But in 2012, Dr. Jill and Mr. Biden came to Arlington on Memorial Day and stood with me at my son's grave. Dr. Jill did not let go of my arm the whole time we were talking. So, and they said, by the grace of God, they weren't there. That was, of course, before Bo died. But they understand. And the leadership, it would be nice to have a real commander in chief, someone who understands military families, who has been through that experience and will be able to relate to, as Leo said, also military families. And I was thrilled when Joe was, well, now he's official, the candidate that that we'll have a commander in chief who understands and who will be able to lead our troops and without using them as little green army men on his own personal game board.
Absolutely, Karen, that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that story with us. I think that really captures it. And we saw that last night in the way that Dr. Biden talked about her husband and the country and the way that they feel about the United States. So thank you. All right, Leo, who do we have speaking tonight at the convention, and who are you most looking forward to hearing from personally?
Well, Kayla kind of gave the rundown earlier in the show, and I am also equally excited about all the senior political women that we are highlighting on the 100th anniversary of suffrage for women. It's a great lineup, but obviously hearing from all those wonderful women, and of course my old boss Barack Obama, and most excited to hear from the vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris about her own personal story. Keep learning more and more about her as she shares her story and gives us more insight into her family, and hearing how she plans to work as a partner with Joe Biden to form a more perfect union as tonight's crowned.
Absolutely. All right, Karen, same question. Who are you excited for in tonight's lineup?
Well, most important, I want to hear from Michelle's husband. And also, any woman who can make Brett Kavanaugh cry gets my vote. So I can't wait to hear what Senator Harris has to say as our VP. And of course, I'll third it, all the female members of Congress and all the dignitaries that are going to be speaking. So I'm looking forward to having a smile on my face again tonight and to see all the hope that we can have. And I'll be working my hardest to get them both elected. We've got 71 days, 72 days till the election. So I'm looking forward to November 3rd, vote early.
Absolutely. Well said. All right, Leo, final question. Once again, to close us out, give us a fun fact people might not know this time about our next vice president, Senator Kamala Harris.
Well, I actually couldn't choose just one. There was three very interesting things that I wanted to share. One I learned doing research for this was just, I didn't know she attended middle school and high school in Montreal while her mom got a teaching job at McGill University and doing cancer research at Jewish General Hospital in Canada. Her kids call her Mamala, and so do some of her Senate colleagues who have taken teaching classes from her directly, including my own Virginia Senator Mark Warner, who made a terrible tuna melt sandwich, supposedly as a public service announcement of washing your hands. But she taught him how to make a proper tuna melt. And it was also revealed the other night about how she taught another former boss of mine, Cory Booker, how to make lentils for his birthday. And my favorite fun fact is because I'm this type of guy too. She collects Converse Chuck Taylor sneakers, which are her go-to travel shoes. They're one of my favorite shoes to wear. So really endearing myself to Vice President Kamala Harris and looking forward to seeing those Chuck Taylors in the White House.
Absolutely. And we're not going to ask people to guess where your culinary skill falls between Mark Warner and Kamala Harris, Leo. We'll just leave that for another day.
Mark Warner, for sure.
All right. Karen, Leo, thank you both for being here this morning. It's really fun to see you. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. Tomorrow, join us right back here at 9 a.m. Eastern. We'll have Congressman Anthony Brown of Maryland, U.S. Senator Gary Peters of Michigan, National Security Advisor to Pete Buttigieg, Doug Wilson, military trailblazer Sue Fulton, full lineup. And once again, Leo will join us for a Biden campaign update. And tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, join us for a special VoteVets Live edition with Congressman Ted Lieu ahead of Vice President Biden's convention speech. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great day.